The pond on Mount Nyoboku went silent before Gamamaru understood that the future had found him. Rain froze in the water. His reflection vanished, and a black sky opened over a world that had never known shinobi. Two pale figures descended. Far below them, a vast divine tree spread roots through the earth. The vision jumped forward. Gamamaru saw chakra wars, hidden villages, a moon over a battlefield, and a blonde man in a white Hokage cloak facing an enemy inside a storm of chakra. The vision ended with one certainty. The child of prophecy would come only after the world endured an age of suffering. When the rain moved again, Gamamaru stayed beside the pond with shaking hands. He had spent years learning not to force prophecy. This time, waiting felt like accepting a disaster he had already seen. The future had shown him a savior, standing at the end of a road paved with thousands of years of suffering. For the first time, Gamamaru decided that waiting for destiny was not enough. He began with the oldest summoning principles he knew. Every ordinary summoning technique connected two places through a contract. A creature existed here, a summoner existed somewhere else. Chakra created the path between them. Time, Gamamaru reasoned, was another kind of distance. The idea was simple enough to say, and almost impossible to perform. For months, he filled a cavern beneath Mount Nyoboku with circular seals drawn in mineral ink and natural energy. He tested the formula on leaves, insects, droplets of water, and finally, small stones marked with symbols. Most trials failed. Some objects arrived a heartbeat before they had been sent. Others came back cracked, cold, or covered in moss that had not been there before. Gamamaru kept working. He did not need to control time. He needed to find one person inside it. On the night the technique finally held together, Gamamaru placed both hands inside the completed seal and let natural energy spread through every line. The cavern disappeared from his senses. He saw years passing like sheets of rain. Forests became roads, roads became settlements, settlements became hidden villages. Faces appeared and vanished too quickly to understand. Gamamaru held on to the same feeling he had sensed in the prophecy and followed it forward. The stream stopped. A man stood inside an office beneath the carved faces of several Hokage. He was older than the boy Gamamaru had expected to find. Bright, blonde hair had become shorter and more controlled with age. The orange clothing was gone. A white Hokage cloak rested across his shoulders. Papers covered his desk, and a framed picture nearby showed the man beside a dark-haired woman and two children. Gamamaru did not know their names. He did not need to. The chakra was unmistakable. So was the contract with Mount Nyoboku, buried deep in the man's history. The child of prophecy had survived long enough to become Hokage. Gamamaru pulled. The seal beneath him exploded with white light. A human body struck the stone floor hard enough to slide across the chalk lines. Gamamaru released the technique at once. The light collapsed. A small blonde boy lay face down in the center of the ruined seal. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Then the boy groaned, pushed himself onto his elbows, and stared at his hands. They were tiny. Naruto Uzumaki had gone to sleep the previous night as the 7th Hokage. He had woken before sunrise to finish a stack of reports, argued with Shikamaru about a border inspection, eaten breakfast too quickly, and promised Himawari that he would be home before dinner. Now his fingers belonged to a child. Naruto sat up so fast that the cavern tilted around him. His breath caught. He reached inward by instinct, searching for the massive familiar presence that had lived beside his own chakra for most of his life. There was nothing there. No heavy warmth, no irritated voice, no Kurama. Naruto pressed a hand against his stomach. His seal was gone. He looked up and found a much younger Gamamaru staring at him with an expression Naruto had never seen on the old Toad Sage. Fear sat plainly on Gamamaru's face. Naruto demanded an explanation, and the answer took a long time. The technique had reached Naruto. Of that, Gamamaru was certain. But the path through time had collapsed while the summoning was pulling him backward. The technique had not copied Naruto or left another living Naruto behind. The same body had crossed the temporal path and been forced backward toward an earlier physical state as the passage failed. His own chakra identity and memories had survived the reconstruction. Separate chakra beings and borrowed chakra bound to him had not. That was why Kurama was gone, along with the other external power Naruto remembered carrying. Naruto tested himself while Gamamaru spoke. His chakra network felt small and raw, like a river forced back into the narrow channel of childhood. He could still shape chakra with the precision of a veteran. He simply had a fraction of the power he remembered. Then, Gamamaru told him the date as best the ancient world measured it. Naruto stopped testing his chakra. Konoha and the Land of Fire did not exist yet. Hidden villages were still thousands of years away, and Hagoromo Otsutsuki had not even been born. Naruto stared at Gamamaru for so long that the toad finally asked if he understood. Naruto understood too well. He remembered Hagoromo sitting across from him in a place between life and death. He remembered the old man's story about his mother. He remembered the war. He remembered Kaguya's empty white face emerging from Madara's body, while the world around them drowned in the infinite Tsukuyomi. He remembered helping seal her away, and according to Gamamaru, Kaguya had not even arrived yet. Naruto stood, took 2 steps, and nearly fell because his legs were too short for the stride his mind expected. He caught himself against the cave wall and swore under his breath. Gamamaru watched him carefully. Naruto asked whether the technique could send him home. Gamamaru answered that attempting it now would be gambling Naruto's existence on a formula that had already failed once. The first summoning had lost its lock on Naruto's original era, and the same technique could not simply be reversed. Gamamaru could continue testing for the temporal signature of that future, but until he could identify it with certainty, opening another passage might send Naruto into the wrong century, or tear apart the same body the first failure had already reconstructed. Naruto closed his eyes. Hinata's face came first, then Boruto leaning back in his chair with that stubborn look he had inherited from both parents. Then Himawari holding up a half-finished drawing at breakfast. His chest tightened so sharply that he had to sit down again. Gamamaru did not offer comfort. He simply remained nearby until Naruto could breathe normally. When Naruto finally looked up, he asked exactly what the prophecy had shown. Gamamaru described the descending figures, the divine tree, the wars, and the distant blonde Hokage. Naruto listened until one detail mattered more than the rest. The arrival was close. If Kaguya had not yet become the enemy Naruto remembered, then sitting safely on Mount Myoboku while history moved toward that future was impossible for him. He told Gamamaru he was going to see her. Gamamaru called the idea reckless. Naruto agreed. That did not change his answer. The first obstacle was embarrassingly simple. Naruto could not understand most humans of the era. The language spoken by the toads had changed less over the centuries than human speech had, and Naruto's summoning bond left him with enough familiarity to understand Gamamaru. Human settlements were another matter. Gamamaru had heard their speech for years, so he spent the next several weeks forcing Naruto through old words, gestures, and pronunciation while Naruto rebuilt control over his smaller chakra network. The training was frustrating in ways Naruto had forgotten. He knew exactly how a shadow clone should feel. His body could only support a few before his head began pounding. He knew the rotation required for a Rasengan. His child-sized hand lost the sphere every time he tried to compress too much chakra into it. On the 9th day, he managed one stable Rasengan the size of a plum. It tore a clean hole through a rotting log and vanished. Naruto looked at the damage and laughed for the first time since arriving. The laugh sounded too high in his new throat. That made him laugh harder. The night before Naruto left, the prophecy pond began trembling even though there was no wind. 2 pale streaks crossed the western sky beyond the mountains. One burned long enough to paint the clouds white. The other vanished so abruptly that Gamamaru could not tell whether it had landed or disappeared somewhere beneath the earth. Natural energy rolled through Mount Myoboku a moment later. The arrival from the prophecy had begun. Gamamaru waited until the disturbance faded, then showed Naruto the direction of the Western Valley. Scouts from Mount Myoboku had already felt a chakra unlike anything on Earth moving there. Naruto left the mountain at dawn with a small pack, clothes adapted for his child body, and a promise that he would return if he discovered anything he could not handle. Both of them knew the promise was optimistic. The human world was quieter than Naruto expected. There were roads, farms, walled estates, market villages, and soldiers carrying spears. But there were no shinobi leaping over rooftops. No chakra signatures flashed from every direction. No hidden village barriers hummed beneath the ground. For the first time in his life, Naruto could cross a settlement without automatically sensing trained chakra nearby. That emptiness made one presence ahead of him impossible to miss. It felt like a white flame behind a wall. Naruto left the road and followed the sensation toward a river bordered by tall grass. Gamamaru's vision had shown two figures descending from the sky. Naruto could sense only one presence now. He stored that question away and kept moving. He found Kaguya standing in the water. For half a heartbeat, his body reacted before his mind could stop it. His knees bent. His right hand rose. Chakra spun toward his palm. Kaguya turned her head. The Rasengan died before it formed. She looked younger than the woman Naruto remembered from the war. Her long, pale hair floated around her in the river breeze. Her face held none of the distant rage that had followed Team 7 through shifting dimensions, but her eyes were the same. Kaguya looked at Naruto's hand, then at his face. Her Byakugan activated. Naruto felt the inspection pass through his chakra network. Kaguya stepped out of the river. She asked what he was rather than who he was, and the wording told Naruto exactly what she had noticed. Naruto understood immediately why. The people he had passed on the road carried life energy, but none of them shaped chakra through developed networks the way Shinobi would in his own age. To Kaguya, Naruto was a human child with a chakra system that should not exist yet. He gave her the safest truth he had. He said he had been pulled from a distant place by a failed summoning technique. He had no family nearby. He was trying to understand where he had landed. Kaguya studied him for so long that Naruto began measuring the distance to the trees. Running would have been pointless. She could have crossed the space before he took 3 steps. Instead, Kaguya reached down and took his wrist. Naruto tensed. Her fingers rested against his pulse, while the Byakugan traced his chakra again. She found no seal, no hidden creature, no obvious mark from another Otsutsuki. Naruto noticed something in return. There was dried blood on the inside of Kaguya's sleeve. It was not hers. She released him and asked who had taught a child to shape chakra. Naruto said the answer was complicated. Kaguya's expression made it clear she disliked that answer. Naruto expected an interrogation. Instead, she told him to follow her. He asked, where? She said she wanted to know whether his story remained complicated after he was fed. Naruto almost smiled. The woman who had once tried to drain chakra from an entire world was taking him to dinner. He followed. Kaguya did not become kind overnight. For the first few days, Naruto felt more like an interesting problem she had decided not to throw away. They traveled through forest paths toward the lands controlled by a ruler named Tenji. Kaguya asked precise questions about his chakra, his language, and the summoning that had brought him there. Naruto answered carefully. Whenever she asked about his home, he became vague. Whenever Naruto asked where she had come from, Kaguya became silent. They learned each other's boundaries quickly. Naruto also learned that Kaguya noticed everything. The first night, he waited until he thought she was asleep before practicing chakra control beside a stream. He created 3 shadow clones. One tried to stabilize a Rasengan, while the others adjusted the rotation. Kaguya appeared behind them without making a sound. She watched the clones dissolve and asked whether humans in his homeland could divide themselves this way. Naruto said some could. Kaguya asked whether his homeland was on Earth. Naruto dropped the Rasengan. Kaguya did not repeat the question. Later that week, a storm broke while they crossed a ridge. Naruto's child body lost heat faster than he expected. He tried to ignore it until his hands began trembling. Kaguya noticed. She removed an outer layer of cloth from her own clothing and wrapped it around him with the practical impatience of someone annoyed that a problem had appeared. Naruto told her he was fine. Kaguya tightened the cloth around his shoulders until he could barely move his arms and continued walking. That evening, she placed him nearest the fire. Naruto lay awake, listening to rain strike the shelter roof. He remembered Kaguya throwing him through a dimension filled with ice. He remembered her trying to separate him and Sasuke because she feared their seals. Then he looked toward the entrance and saw the same woman sitting with her back against the wall, keeping watch while he slept. For the first time, the future he remembered felt less like a destination and more like a warning. Soon after, Tenji's lands gave Kaguya something she had not expected to find on Earth, a place where she could actually remain. The ruler was cautious around her from the beginning. Kaguya's appearance made concealment impossible, and the strange calm with which she regarded armed soldiers made several guards reach for their weapons before Tenji ordered them to stop. Naruto's presence confused everyone further. A pale woman no one knew had arrived with a blonde child who spoke the local language awkwardly and carried himself like a much older traveler. Aino was the first person in Tenji's residence who treated the situation as something other than a political danger. She gave Naruto food, corrected his pronunciation, and found him better clothes after realizing his travel garments had been repaired so many times that the seams were beginning to fail. Naruto liked her immediately. That frightened him more than he wanted to admit. He knew her name. He knew she belonged somewhere inside the ancient story of Kaguya. He did not remember every detail Hagoromo had once told him. He had been fighting a war when much of that history came at him. He knew the important shape of events, not every conversation. That meant Aino could die tomorrow, years from now, or never. Naruto decided not to ask Gamamaru for another prophecy. He wanted to see the people in front of him, not turn them into markers on a timeline. Weeks became months. Tenji's caution toward Kaguya gradually became trust. He saw that she could have seized his land whenever she wished, and had chosen not to. Kaguya saw that Tenji listened before giving orders, and that he was willing to appear weak if it prevented unnecessary bloodshed. Naruto watched them grow closer, with the uncomfortable awareness of someone who knew there was supposed to be pain at the end of it. He also became part of the household in ways he had never planned. Aino started leaving extra food because Naruto trained before dawn and always came back hungry. Tenji sometimes asked him to sit in on lessons with young attendants because Naruto's strange questions exposed assumptions the teachers had never examined. Kaguya began checking where he was before she left the residence. Naruto noticed that last habit first. One afternoon, he returned late from Mount Myoboku and found Kaguya waiting outside the gate. She did not ask whether he was safe. She looked at the mud on his sandals, the fresh scrape on his elbow, and the pack of medicinal leaves Gamamaru had sent back with him. Then she asked why he had taken a dangerous route through the ravine when a safer path existed to the north. Naruto stared at her. Kaguya had learned the routes he used. He apologized. She told him not to do it again. The exchange lasted less than a minute. It stayed with Naruto for days. Her concern never erased her suspicion. Months earlier, Kaguya had followed Naruto's trail until it disappeared into a region saturated with Mount Myoboku's natural energy. The distortion around that route matched the strange spatial trace she had sensed on Naruto when they first met. Naruto admitted that Gamamaru had caused the failed summoning, but he refused to say where he had been summoned from. Kaguya chose not to force her way into a sanctuary Naruto clearly trusted. What she confirmed was enough to convince her that he was not an agent sent by her clan. It was not enough to explain him. From then on, her trust in Naruto was deliberate rather than blind, and she continued watching for the part of his story he refused to give her. The border crisis began in the second summer. A neighboring realm had been testing Tenji's patience with raids disguised as bandit attacks. Tenji answered each incident with patrols and negotiation, because an open war would burn farms on both sides of the border. His restraint was interpreted as weakness. Naruto noticed the pattern before most of Tenji's soldiers did. He had spent years reading mission reports as Hokage. The raids were not aimed at taking food or territory. They were measuring response times. He warned Tenji that something larger was coming. Tenji listened, but he could not mobilize an army based on the instincts of a child. Naruto understood that. He hated it anyway. 3 days later, a small group of men wearing Tenji's colors attacked a border village and left witnesses alive. By sunset, messengers from the neighboring realm arrived accusing Tenji of breaking the peace. The evidence was too clean. Naruto followed one of the supposed survivors after the meeting. Behind a stable, the man met a mounted courier, exchanged a short coded phrase, and pulled 3 folded guard tunics from beneath a grain cover. They were Tenji's colors. Naruto did not confront either man. He created 3 shadow clones in an empty storehouse. One followed the courier west and watched him return to a small forward camp used by soldiers from the neighboring realm. Once the clone identified the camp, it dispersed and returned the memory to Naruto. The second stayed on the supposed survivor. The third watched the residents. The real Naruto went to find Aino. His instincts were right. The next move came after midnight. The spy opened a service gate, while 3 soldiers pulled on the stolen uniforms and approached the wing where Kaguya slept. Their plan was crude but effective. Kill someone close to Kaguya using Tenji's colors. Let Kaguya retaliate. Then claim Tenji had lost control of the dangerous outsider he had sheltered. Aino stepped into the corridor, carrying a lamp at exactly the wrong moment. One soldier drew a short bow. Naruto's clone shouted from the roof. The archer looked up. That half-second saved Aino's life. Naruto hit her from the side, just as the arrow crossed the corridor. They rolled behind a wooden pillar. The arrow buried itself where her chest had been. Naruto was already moving again. His first clone dropped from the roof and ticked the archer's wrist. The clone was physically weaker than a trained adult soldier and got thrown into a wall hard enough to burst into smoke. The second attacker lunged at the real Naruto with a spear. Naruto stepped inside the point, trapped the shaft under one arm, and drove a palm into the man's elbow. His child body did not have enough strength to break the joint. He had expected that. The tiny Rasengan, already spinning in his other hand, struck the wooden spear instead. The shaft exploded into splinters. The soldier stared at the empty space where his weapon had been. Naruto swept his ankle and used the man's own momentum to send him face first into the floor. Kaguya appeared between them. She moved once. The attacker flew the length of the corridor and crashed through a screen wall. Kaguya turned toward the remaining men with murder in her eyes. Naruto recognized that look. He grabbed her sleeve. He told her they needed them alive. Kaguya's fingers had already begun to rise. She stopped. That choice changed everything. Tenji was awakened. Naruto's second clone caught the spy at the service gate, and 2 of the attackers survived. One was recognized by Tenji's border scouts as a soldier who had served with a neighboring patrol. When the prisoners were confronted with the courier route Naruto's first clone had followed, the spy admitted before dawn that the attack had been ordered to provoke Kaguya into striking Tenji's enemies. Tenji now had living conspirators instead of a convenient emblem hidden under someone's clothes. Several advisors still argued that Kaguya herself was the greater danger. Tenji refused to condemn her for an attack someone else had arranged. Aino survived. Kaguya did not flee in grief. Tenji did not order her death. Naruto stood outside the residence as morning light crossed the courtyard and understood that he had just broken history. He waited for something to happen, for his memories to fade, for his body to vanish, for the sky to split. Nothing did. Aino came outside with a bandage around one arm and struck him lightly on the head for throwing himself in front of an arrow. Naruto rubbed the sore spot and laughed. Then his eyes burned. He turned away before she noticed. That evening, Kaguya found him alone beside the river. She asked why he had known the attack was coming. Naruto said he had seen too many people use the same trick in his homeland. Kaguya asked how many wars a child could possibly have seen. Naruto looked at the water. He did not answer. For once, Kaguya let the silence remain. The old path had broken. That did not mean the danger was gone. It simply meant the future had stopped telling Naruto what came next. The border conspiracy failed, but peace did not return with sunrise. Tenji sent the captured soldier back under guard with proof of the false attack and demanded negotiations. The neighboring ruler denied everything. Patrols doubled. Farmers began moving away from the border. Merchants stopped taking the western road. Rumors moved faster than armies. Some described Kaguya as a heavenly woman who could kill a man by lifting one hand. Others claimed Tenji had brought a demon into his residence. A few stories mentioned the strange blonde boy who could create copies of himself and crush wood with a spinning sphere of chakra. Naruto disliked those stories most. He had spent years as Hokage trying to prevent small incidents from becoming excuses for larger wars. Now he had created a new problem by saving Aino in the only way available to him. Tenji did not blame him. He did warn Naruto that frightened people would build explanations for powers they did not understand. Naruto accepted the warning and became more careful outside the residence. Kaguya became less careful. The attack had changed something in her. She still listened to Tenji. She still sat with Aino during quiet meals. She still corrected Naruto when he returned late from training. But Naruto began catching her staring toward the horizon with her Byakugan active, even when there was nothing human to see. One night, he found her on the highest terrace of the residence, facing an empty stretch of mountains. Naruto asked what she was looking for. Kaguya said she was making sure they were alone. The answer followed him back to his room. A few weeks later, Naruto learns that Kaguya was carrying Tenji's children. Aino told him first, because Kaguya had not yet decided how to explain it. Naruto nearly dropped the bowl in his hands. The names struck Naruto at once. Hagoromo and Hamura were no longer ancient figures attached to a story. They were already alive, still hidden inside Kaguya's body. Naruto spent the rest of the day avoiding everyone until Kaguya found him sitting beneath a tree outside the residence. She asked why he had been behaving strangely. Naruto said he was thinking. Kaguya replied that he did too much of that for a child. He almost told her then. He could have said that he knew her son's names before she had chosen them. He could have warned her that one day those children were supposed to fight her. He could have described the moon, the Ten Tails, Black Zetsu, Madara, the Fourth Shinobi War. The words stayed in his throat. If Naruto had learned anything from changing Aino's fate, it was that knowledge of the future was not the same thing as understanding the present. He told Kaguya only that he was happy for her. She studied him for a moment, then placed one hand on the top of his head and left it there longer than usual. The divine tree ripened during the same season. Naruto felt it from several days away. The chakra inside the fruit was unlike anything his younger body had ever touched. It was dense enough to distort his senses. Natural energy bent around the distant tree as though the land itself was afraid of approaching it. Gamamaru felt it too. Naruto returned to Mount Myoboku and found the young sage waiting beside the prophecy pond. The old visions were becoming unstable. The road that had once led clearly from Kaguya to Hagoromo, then through generations of conflict to Naruto's era, now split into shapes Gamamaru could not follow. Naruto asked whether he had already erased his home. Gamamaru could not answer. That uncertainty hurt more than a clear warning would have. Naruto went back to Tenji's lands with one decision. He would not stand aside while Kaguya ate the fruit simply because she had done so in the history he remembered. He confronted her before sunset. Kaguya did not deny what the fruit was. She explained that the divine tree gathered the life of the world over time and condensed it into power. The tree on Earth was older than her arrival. Long before Kaguya and her companion had been assigned to this world, her clan had already begun the cultivation cycle here. A Ten Tails had been rooted by an Otsutsuki sacrifice in an earlier age, and the tree had spent generations drawing energy toward a single harvest. Kaguya and the Otsutsuki, who came with her, were sent to supervise the final maturation and return with the fruit. Naruto asked whether taking it would damage the people living here. Kaguya said the tree had already taken what it needed to produce the fruit. Naruto heard the gap in the answer. He asked what would happen afterward. Kaguya looked away. That frightened him. Naruto told her not to eat it. Kaguya asked why. Naruto said power that large never remained a private solution. Once someone had enough strength to force every problem into silence, it became harder to remember why they had once chosen patience. Kaguya's eyes narrowed. She asked who had taught him that lesson. Naruto thought of Nagato standing above a ruined Konoha. He thought of Obito inside a mask. He thought of Sasuke announcing a revolution with every tailed beast under his control. Then he thought of himself in a Hokage office, exhausted, irritated, and still required to listen to people whose decisions he hated, because that was the job. He told her that life had taught him. Kaguya did not promise to leave the fruit untouched. Naruto did not expect her to. He began looking for another solution. For 3 days, he studied the divine tree from a distance with Gamamaru. The tree's roots formed a network too large for his current strength to destroy. Even if he somehow cut the visible trunk, natural energy and gathered life force ran through roots spread beneath miles of ground. During one test, Naruto fed a thread of his own chakra into an exposed feeder root. The root seized the connection and tried to draw more until he cut the flow. It had not chosen him or recognized him. It had simply found available energy and pulled. Gamamaru made him remember that reaction before they went any closer. Naruto considered stealing the fruit. Gamamaru stared at him until he admitted that a 7-year-old trying to steal an Otsutsuki chakra fruit from Kaguya was not his best plan. Naruto corrected him. He was 8 now. Gamamaru said that improved nothing. Naruto returned to the residence frustrated and found soldiers arriving from the west. Negotiations had failed. The neighboring realm had decided that Tenji's refusal to surrender Kaguya proved he intended to use her power against them. Their army moved toward the border in 3 columns. Smaller lords who feared Kaguya had begun sending support. Tenji ordered defensive positions and evacuation routes. He still hoped to avoid a full battle. Kaguya listened to the reports in silence. Naruto saw the decision forming on her face before she spoke. He followed her when she left the room. She was going to the divine tree. Naruto tried every argument he had already used. Kaguya answered with one question. What happened if the next attack reached the residence while Tenji was away and Naruto was too late to save Ino again? Naruto said they would prepare better. Kaguya asked what happened if the danger was not human. That stopped him. She finally admitted that Earth had not been her first concern when she arrived. She had enemies beyond it. She would not say who. She would only say that being found unprepared could destroy everyone around her before Naruto had time to form a single hand sign. Naruto followed her all the way to the tree. The fruit hung above them like a heart made of condensed chakra. Naruto created 4 shadow clones. Kaguya looked at him with something close to disappointment. Naruto told her he could not let her take it without trying. He knew he could not defeat her. The goal was the fruit. 2 clones sprinted along opposite routes. One hurled stones charged with chakra toward Kaguya's eyes. The 4th drove a small Rasengan into the base of the branch supporting the fruit. Kaguya moved before the first stone reached her. Her hair swept outward and caught one clone by the ankle. Another clone vanished beneath a palm strike, so fast Naruto barely saw it. The Rasengan struck the branch and tore away a layer of bark, but the chakra inside the tree sealed the damage almost immediately. The real Naruto leaped from above. His hand closed around the fruit's stem. For one ridiculous second, he thought he had it. Space twisted. Naruto fell through darkness and landed on his back 20 feet away. The fruit was still on the tree. Kaguya stood between him and the trunk. She had not hurt him. That made the difference in power feel worse. Naruto pushed himself up and tried again. Kaguya pinned him to the ground with pressure that felt like a mountain settling across his shoulders. She told him she was not taking the fruit because she wanted a throne. She was taking it because she would not leave her children helpless. Naruto shouted that fear could make any weapon look necessary. Kaguya looked toward the west. The first fires from the approaching army were visible beyond the hills. Then she released Naruto, turned, and took the fruit. He could only watch. Kaguya ate it. The world changed around her. Chakra erupted through the valley with enough force to flatten grass in every direction. Naruto drove his fingers into the ground to keep from being thrown backward. The divine tree shuddered from root to crown. A third eye opened on Kaguya's forehead, and the pressure of her presence became so intense that Naruto's instincts screamed at him to run. For a moment, Naruto saw the woman from the war in the sheer scale of the power surrounding Kaguya. She had not attacked him, but now almost nothing on earth could stop her if she chose to. Kaguya turned toward the Western Army. A black opening appeared in the air in front of her. She stepped through it. Naruto saw the valley and Tenji's defensive line on the other side for only an instant. He ran and threw himself through before the opening closed. He landed hard on the ridge, several steps behind Kaguya. The battle that had been forming for weeks lasted less than an hour. Tenji's soldiers had prepared barricades across the narrow valley. The invading force outnumbered them several times over. Archers filled the opposite ridge. Infantry moved behind tall shields. Tenji was still trying to arrange one final meeting when Kaguya appeared above the battlefield. Every head turned upward. Kaguya raised one hand. The earth under the invading front line split. A wave of chakra ripped weapons and shields from hundreds of hands and lifted supply wagons from the road. Horses screamed and pulled free of their harnesses. Soldiers dropped to the ground as the pressure rolled over them. Kaguya's third eye opened wider. He remembered a red moon. He remembered thousands of people wrapped inside roots. His stomach turned. Kaguya looked down. He told her to stop the soldiers, not erase them. The invading commander ordered the archers to fire at her. Hundreds of arrows rose. Kaguya flicked her wrist. Every arrow stopped in the air. Naruto waited. Instead, the arrows fell harmlessly into the empty ground between the armies. Then, she shattered every weapon she had lifted. Spears snapped. Sword blades broke. Bow limbs cracked. Wagons overturned without crushing the men beside them. The invading army had come prepared to fight another army. It had no answer for a woman who could take away the concept of resistance before the battle began. Naruto looked at Kaguya. She looked back at him. She had listened. That should have made him feel better. It did not. On the walk home, Naruto understood the real danger of the fruit. Kaguya had ended a war with almost no bloodshed. She had achieved in minutes what Tenji's diplomacy had failed to accomplish in months. The result was good. The method was terrifyingly easy. The next time someone challenged her, asking Kaguya to negotiate would be asking her to choose a difficult path when absolute control required a gesture. Naruto knew how people changed under that kind of power. He also knew Kaguya was not a monster. That made the future harder, not easier. Hagoromo and Hamura were born several months later. Naruto had faced gods, armies, tailed beasts, and paperwork emergencies involving the Land of Fire's tax offices. Nothing prepared him for Kaguya placing Hagoromo in his arms and telling him to support the baby's head. Naruto went rigid. Aino laughed at him until she had to sit down. Hagoromo opened his eyes and stared up at Naruto with the unfocused seriousness of a newborn. Naruto stared back. Once, that same person had floated in front of him with a staff and explained the history of chakra. Now Hagoromo sneezed directly onto Naruto's shirt. Hamura began crying from Kaguya's arms. Hagoromo immediately joined him. Naruto looked helplessly at Aino. Aino told him that a proud older brother should be able to handle two babies. Naruto nearly dropped Hagoromo. Kaguya took the child back before disaster could become part of the new timeline. The years that followed did more to change Naruto than any battle. He had expected history to feel enormous from the beginning. Instead, most days were small. Hagoromo learned to walk by chasing Naruto across a courtyard. Hamura learned to climb before anyone realized he could, and was found sitting on a roof beam while Aino shouted instructions from below. Kaguya could cross dimensions, but she still became irritated when both boys refused to sleep at the same time. Naruto became their older brother long before either child understood what the word meant. When Hagoromo was 4, he followed Naruto into the training field and demanded to learn the spinning chakra sphere he had seen in Naruto's hand. Naruto told him he was too young. Hagoromo tried anyway and blasted dirt into his own face. Hamura laughed until he fell over. Kaguya later informed Naruto that teaching experimental chakra techniques to toddlers was irresponsible. Naruto reminded her that he had refused to teach it. Kaguya pointed out that he had demonstrated it where they could see. Naruto had no answer for that. When the twins were 6, their own chakra became impossible to ignore. Hagoromo's reserves grew with frightening speed. Hamura's Byakugan developed enough clarity to see channels inside living bodies. Kaguya began teaching them control because no human teacher could understand what they were. Naruto joined those lessons when Kaguya allowed it. He taught them what Kaguya did not: how to fall without breaking a wrist, how to read an opponent's shoulders instead of staring at the weapon, how to stop training when pride wanted one more attempt, how to use clones for practice without letting the memory backlash ruin an entire day. He did not give them every technique from the future. Naruto had no interest in recreating the shinobi world by accident. He showed them principles, then let them build their own answers. They did. Hagoromo became fascinated by the idea that chakra could connect people rather than simply strengthen them. Hamura cared more about precision. He could watch Naruto move chakra through a tenketsu and reproduce the shape with unnerving accuracy. Kaguya watched both boys with pride and worry in equal measure. The worry grew as they did. Naruto continued returning to Mount Myoboku. His child body became an adolescent body, then a young man's. His own Uzumaki reserves expanded. His control remained years ahead of his physical development, because his mind had already spent a lifetime learning from mistakes. By 14, he could create dozens of shadow clones without collapsing. By 16, his Rasengan had regained the force he remembered from his early shinobi years. By 19, he could enter Sage Mode again. That return took longer than he expected. Natural energy did not care that Naruto remembered the theory. His rebuilt body needed to learn the balance for itself. Gamamaru made him sit motionless on stone pillars until Naruto was ready to scream from boredom. More than once, natural energy began stiffening his fingers before he corrected the balance. Naruto accepted the humiliation. He wanted strength for a reason now. Kaguya was growing more powerful through the fruit and the divine tree. Hagoromo and Hamura were developing abilities no one could fully predict. Naruto did not need to stand above them. He needed enough power to matter if the family ever broke. That fear stayed with him through every peaceful year. Sometimes it felt foolish. Tenji grew older beside Kaguya. His hair began showing gray, while her face barely changed. Aino developed lines around her eyes and complained that Naruto still ate like a starving child whenever he returned from Mount Myoboku. Hagoromo and Hamura grew into long-limbed adolescents who could argue with Naruto over chakra theory and then steal food from his plate when he looked away. After Kaguya's display on the western battlefield, no neighboring ruler attempted another direct invasion for years. Some sent envoys seeking her protection. Others formed agreements with one another because they feared Tenji might eventually use her to conquer them. Tenji repeatedly refused to expand his borders through Kaguya's power, and the remaining violence shifted into raids, proxy disputes, and small wars farther from his lands. There were still festivals, harvests, and border agreements, but the political map around them had changed simply because everyone now knew what Kaguya could do. There were evenings when Naruto sat outside with Kaguya while the twins trained in the field and almost believed he had already won. Then Gamamaru's visions disappeared. Naruto was 21 when the prophecy pond went blank. He stood beside Gamamaru and stared into water that showed only their reflections. Gamamaru explained that the future had once formed a strong current. Major events pulled later events toward them. Kaguya's conflict with her sons had been one of those currents. So had the spread of chakra. So had generations of war. Now, those currents had broken apart. Gamamaru could still glimpse possibilities, but the Konoha Naruto remembered no longer appeared as a fixed destination. Naruto asked about Hinata, Boruto, and Himawari one by one. Gamamaru had no answer for any of them. He had continued running harmless locator tests over the years, searching for the temporal signature of Naruto's original era, but the result had become less stable after every major change. Since Aino's survival, the signature of the era Naruto remembered had blurred into unstable temporal echoes as the single future changed around them. Gamamaru refused to open a passage while he could not identify the exact point Naruto had left, with enough certainty to know where the same body would arrive. Naruto remained beside the pond until the sun moved behind the trees. He did not cry. He picked up a flat stone and threw it across the water. It skipped 6 times. The 7th skip sank. When he finally returned to Tenji's lands, Hamura was waiting at the mountain path with a basket Aino had sent for medicinal herbs. Hamura complained that Naruto had disappeared for 3 days without warning him. Naruto took the basket and started walking. Hamura followed, still complaining. Naruto listened to his younger brother's voice and understood something he had been avoiding for years. The people of this era were no longer ancestors in a story. They were the people who would notice if he failed to come home. That did not make losing his old future hurt less. It did make the choice in front of him real. For several more years, the family held together. Then, people began disappearing. At first, no one connected the cases. A raider vanished from a prison camp after attacking a village. A war leader captured near the northern border disappeared before his transfer. 3 men, convicted of selling villagers to neighboring armies, were reported dead, but no bodies were returned to their families. Tenji believed different local commanders were hiding executions. Hagoromo suspected corruption. Naruto noticed something else. The missing people had all been classified as threats Kaguya had personally reviewed. He did not accuse her. He investigated. That decision came from his years as Hokage, not from the boy he had once been. Naruto followed records, travel routes, and chakra traces instead of charging into Kaguya's room demanding answers. Aino helped without knowing what he was looking for. Tenji gave him access to prisoner movements because Naruto had earned that trust over decades. The trail led beneath the divine tree. Naruto entered the root network alone. The deeper chambers were not natural caves. Kaguya had shaped them. Smooth passages curved between roots, thick as towers. Chakra pulsed through the walls in slow waves. Naruto found the missing prisoners suspended inside pale organic shells. Some were unconscious. Some had already changed. Their skin had lost color. Their bodies were being reshaped by the tree into uniformed soldiers with empty expressions. Naruto stood in the chamber with sage mode spreading around his eyes and felt the old future return in one sickening piece. They were the beginning of the White Zetsu army he remembered, still small enough to stop, before it became something far worse. When he placed a hand against the nearest shell, a feeder root beneath his palm twitched and tried to catch his chakra. Naruto broke contact at once. Kaguya appeared behind him and stilled the root. She explained that the chamber was isolated through selected channels because the tree itself did not care whose energy it consumed. It followed whatever pathways were left open. Naruto remembered the same blind pull from the tests he had done with Gamamaru. Then he asked how many prisoners were inside. Kaguya said fewer than 30. Naruto turned. He asked how many there would be when 30 stopped feeling like enough. Kaguya's face hardened. She explained that every person in the chamber had caused deaths. Everyone had continued fighting after being offered surrender. Their lives would now serve a purpose greater than the damage they had done. Naruto walked to the nearest shell and placed his hand against it. The man inside still had a heartbeat. He told Kaguya that punishment and turning a person into a tool were not the same thing. Kaguya answered that the people beyond Earth would not care about such distinctions when they arrived. Naruto asked whether she had proof anyone was coming. Kaguya's eyes flashed. She told him he was alive because she had learned never to assume an enemy was dead, simply because she wanted them to be. Naruto froze. Kaguya had said too much. He asked what enemy. She refused. Naruto pushed harder. Kaguya told him to leave the chamber. Naruto did not. For the first time since he had been a child in her care, they stood facing each other as adults, with neither willing to step aside. Naruto told her the soldiers had to be released. Kaguya said they were not his decision. Naruto replied that if she planned to build an army from human bodies, then she had made it his decision the moment she expected him to keep calling this place home. Kaguya's chakra pressed against the chamber walls. Naruto remained where he was. He knew he would lose if she attacked. Kaguya knew it too. That made her choice matter. She did not attack. Instead, she asked him again who he really was. Naruto gave her more truth than he ever had before. He said Gamamaru had summoned him across time. Kaguya's expression changed. Naruto explained that he had lived an entire life before appearing here. He had been an adult. He had led a village. The failed technique had reduced his body, but left his memories intact. Kaguya listened without interruption. Then she asked the question Naruto had feared for nearly 20 years. Why had he known her face when they first met? Naruto could not answer that one yet. He looked toward the people trapped in the roots and said there were still parts of the truth he was not ready to give her. Kaguya became colder than he had seen her in years. She told him that secrets had always been the condition of their relationship. He kept his, she kept hers. Naruto answered that her secret was breathing inside a wall. Kaguya released the prisoners who had not yet been altered. She refused to destroy the transformed soldiers. It was a compromise neither of them accepted. Naruto left the chamber knowing the family had entered the most dangerous part of its new history. That night, Kaguya finally told him about the other Otsutsuki. She found him outside the residence, long after everyone else had gone to sleep. There had been 2 arrivals, she said. She had come to Earth with a superior from her clan. They had not planted the divine tree themselves. Earth was an old cultivation site, rooted long before their assignment after a 10 tails consumed an Otsutsuki sacrifice. Their task was to guard the mature tree, complete the harvest, and return the fruit to the clan. Kaguya had turned against her superior before the harvest was complete. She had attacked him when he did not expect betrayal. She had left him dying. Naruto asked his name. Kaguya did not give it. She said the name did not matter if he was dead. Naruto heard the fear beneath the sentence. He asked whether she believed he was dead. Kaguya watched the dark horizon. She said she had believed it once. Not anymore. Naruto felt cold despite the summer air. Nothing in his memories fit this story. Hagoromo had never told him that Kaguya arrived with another Otsutsuki. Kaguya herself had never explained it during the war. Naruto had been torn out of one future and dragged into another before later events could teach him more. For the first time since arriving in the past, he was facing a danger that might be completely real and completely absent from his memory. That did not make Kaguya's army acceptable. It did make her fear understandable. The following morning, Naruto returned to Mount Myoboku. Gamamaru listened to everything. Then he led Naruto to a fissure on the far side of the mountain, where natural energy rose from deep beneath the earth. Several months earlier, Gamamaru had felt a brief disturbance through that network. At the time, it had been too weak and too mixed with deep natural energy to identify as a chakra signature. Gamamaru had treated it as a possible shift in the underground flow, rather than summon Naruto over an uncertainty. Kaguya's confession changed the meaning of it. When Gamamaru compared the lingering texture to what he knew of Kaguya's chakra, he could tell that the disturbance had not been hers. It had come from far west of Tenji's borders, and from deep underground. Naruto stared at the distant horizon. Kaguya was wrong about what she was doing. She might not be wrong about what was coming. Naruto returned from Mount Myoboku with no useful prophecy, and a problem worse than the one he had taken there. Kaguya had spent years preparing for an enemy Naruto could not dismiss anymore. That did not mean he could accept her method. He found Hagoromo and Hamura in the eastern training field before sunset. Both were old enough now that calling them boys had become habit rather than fact. Hagoromo had grown taller than Naruto and carried himself with the quiet patience of someone who preferred to understand a problem before touching it. He was precise, even when relaxed, his pale eyes constantly collecting details he rarely bothered to mention. They knew something was wrong before Naruto spoke. Hagoromo had already noticed the missing prisoners. Hamura had already followed chakra from the divine tree and found sealed passages beneath it. They had come to Naruto first, because that was what they had done since childhood, whenever Kaguya frightened them, and they were ashamed of being frightened. Naruto sat with them under the same tree where Hagoromo had once tried to make his first Rasengan. He told them about the prisoners. He told them what Kaguya was doing to the captured men. He did not call the pale soldiers White Zetsu. That name belonged to a future no one else remembered. Hagoromo asked whether their mother had explained why. Naruto told them about the second Otsutsuki. Hamura's expression barely changed, but the fingers of his right hand tightened against his knee. Kaguya had never told her sons she arrived with someone else. The twins wanted to confront her immediately. Naruto stopped them. He had spent his childhood charging into arguments before he understood them. He had spent adulthood learning that entering a room angry often guaranteed that everyone else became defensive before the first useful sentence was spoken. They needed evidence of what Kaguya intended next. Hamura supplied it 2 days later, using his Byakugan from a distant ridge. He watched chakra begin moving through the divine tree in a pattern far larger than the hidden chamber Naruto had discovered. Smaller roots beneath villages were being opened one by one. Hagoromo recognized the shape. It was not a storage system, it was a network. Kaguya was preparing to connect the tree to populated areas across Tenji's territory. 30 prisoners had been attested. The next step was thousands. They went to Kaguya together. Tenji was present when they arrived. So was Aino, older now and slower on the stairs, but still capable of silencing Naruto with one look when he ignored an injury. Kaguya did not deny the network. She said the work was not complete, and no one would be touched until it was necessary. Hagoromo asked what necessary meant. Kaguya answered that if the Otsutsuki returned, humanity would have no chance to prepare after the attack began. Hamura asked whether the people connected to the tree had agreed to become soldiers. Kaguya's patience thinned. She said agreement was a luxury for people who understood the danger. Tenji's face changed at that. He had spent nearly 20 years beside Kaguya. He had seen her save his land. He had seen frightened rulers turn fear into war. He had also spent his entire life governing humans who often made selfish and foolish choices. He told Kaguya that their foolishness did not make their bodies hers to use. The room became very still. Kaguya looked at him as if the sentence had reopened an old wound. Naruto saw the past trying to rebuild itself with new pieces. Tenji frightened by the power of the woman he loved. Children questioning their mother's decisions. Humans resisting her control. All the ingredients of the tragedy were present again. Naruto stepped between Kaguya and the others before anyone could say something that could not be taken back. He told Kaguya they were not abandoning her. Kaguya asked whether that was what he called arriving together to order her to surrender the only preparation capable of protecting them. Naruto said they were asking her to prepare without turning the world into an army that had no choice. Kaguya demanded an alternative. That was the hardest part. Naruto did not have one strong enough. He had training, Sage Mode, Shadow Clones, decades of combat experience. Hagoromo and Hamura possessed extraordinary chakra. Gamamaru could gather the toads of Mount Myoboku. None of that proved they could defeat another high-ranking Otsutsuki. Kaguya saw the hesitation. She told them the discussion was over. Then, she left. That choice nearly cost them everything. The foreign chakra pulse returned that night. This time, Naruto felt it from Tenji's residence. It came through the ground as a vibration too deep for ordinary senses. Kaguya felt it at the same moment. Her reaction was immediate. The divine tree activated. Roots beneath the capital began glowing with pale chakra. Similar pulses appeared in villages miles away. People woke with dizziness and pressure behind their eyes. Aino dropped a cup in the hallway and had to brace herself against the wall. Naruto ran outside. Kaguya was already in the sky above the residence. The third eye on her forehead was open. Hagoromo and Hamura joined Naruto in the courtyard. Naruto entered Sage Mode and felt the scale of the activation. The tree was not merely gathering energy, it was preparing to take people. Naruto shouted for Kaguya to stop. She told him the enemy had revealed himself. Naruto asked where. Kaguya could not answer. The pulse had vanished again. That made her more afraid, not less. She believed the hidden Otsutsuki was testing her, watching her, waiting until she was weak enough to strike. The tree's roots began wrapping around homes at the edge of the capital. Naruto looked at Hagoromo and Hamura. They did not need a discussion. They had trained together too long. Hamura activated his Byakugan and scanned the ground. Hagoromo spread his chakra outward through the roots, feeling for the points where Kaguya's power entered the network. Naruto created 12 shadow clones and sent them toward the first affected districts. The goal was not to fight Kaguya yet. The goal was to keep people alive. Naruto's clones reached the outer streets as pale roots burst through packed earth. Each clone carried instructions rather than raw power. Break windows before roots seal them. Move children first. Cut only the smaller feeder roots, because severing a main channel could cause stored chakra to discharge into nearby houses. Naruto had learned that last lesson the hard way while studying the tree with Gamamaru. One clone ignored the rule when a root wrapped around a family trapped beneath a collapsed roof. He hit the thick root with a Rasengan. The root split. A blast of chakra threw the clone through 2 walls and shattered every clay lamp in the street. The clone vanished. The memory hit the real Naruto instantly. He adjusted the plan. Hagoromo had located 3 major junctions beneath the capital. If they sealed those points instead of cutting them, they could stop the flow without releasing the stored energy. Hamura found a 4th junction hidden deeper beneath the divine tree itself. Naruto sent half his clones to evacuation and took the others with the twins toward the tree. Kaguya landed in front of them. She told her sons to go home. Hagoromo answered that there would be no home left if she emptied everyone inside it. Kaguya's expression broke for a fraction of a second. Then, her chakra rose. The pressure split the ground between them. He knew waiting would let Kaguya control the entire field. 4 clones scattered wide, while the real Naruto drove straight toward her. It looked like the kind of attack he would have used as a teenager. Kaguya knew better than to believe it. Her hair lashed outward toward the real body. Naruto smiled. He had expected her to identify him by chakra density. The body she struck dissolved into smoke. The real Naruto had suppressed his chakra and hidden among the clones. He appeared under her left side, with Sage Mode already feeding a Rasengan. Kaguya opened a black portal between them. Naruto's hand disappeared into darkness. He released the Rasengan before his arm followed. The sphere exploded somewhere inside the portal and forced Kaguya to close it. That half-second was enough for Hamura. He reached the first root junction and drove 2 fingers into precise chakra points along its surface. The flow stuttered. Hagoromo slammed both palms against the ground and formed a containment field around the junction. One of 4 anchors went dark. Kaguya's eyes widened. She stopped treating the confrontation as an argument. Space folded. Naruto felt the shift before he saw it. He grabbed Hagoromo's shoulder and shouted for Hamura. The green valley vanished. Ice replaced it. Naruto hit frozen ground on one knee as wind tore across an endless white landscape. The memory of another battle came back so strongly that his body moved before thought. He looked upward. A black portal opened above Hamura. Naruto threw a clone into him. The clone and Hamura rolled aside as Kaguya's strike shattered the ice where his head had been. Kaguya stared at Naruto. He had moved too early. He had known where the portal would open. Naruto saw the question in her face. There was no time to answer. Hagoromo sent a wave of chakra through the ice, cracking the surface beneath Kaguya's feet. Hamura used a Byakugan to track her through the whiteout. Naruto's clones attacked from changing angles, never trying to overpower her. They were buying time. The seals already placed on Earth were still restricting the divine tree, even while Kaguya was away from its main trunk. Kaguya adapted quickly. She stopped chasing individual clones. A single burst of force swept across the ice. 7 Narutos vanished at once. The real Naruto crossed his arms and took the edge of the blast. He skidded backward until his sandals tore lines through the ice. His forearms went numb. Kaguya appeared in front of him. Naruto barely blocked her palm. The impact launched him through an ice ridge. Pain flashed along his ribs. His body was strong now. It was still human. Naruto rolled out of the broken ice and forced himself upright. Kaguya could have followed and ended the fight. She did not. Hamura had reached her from behind. His palms struck 2 chakra points near her shoulder before she twisted away. For anyone else, the hit would have disabled an arm. Kaguya's chakra burned through the disruption almost immediately. She caught Hamura by the wrist and threw him across the field. Hagoromo intercepted his brother with a chakra barrier before he hit the ground. Naruto used the opening to gather natural energy. His next Rasengan was larger. He drove it into the ice between Kaguya and the twins. The explosion filled the air with white fragments. Naruto was not trying to injure her. He was hiding Hagoromo and Hamura long enough to make Kaguya choose where her attention belonged. Far away on Earth, the first sealed junction tightened around the divine tree's flow. Kaguya felt the network weakening through her own chakra. Remaining in the ice world gave her complete control of the fight. But the army she had spent years preparing was beginning to collapse. Without her at the main trunk, she could return alone and leave her sons stranded in the frozen dimension. Naruto saw from her face that the option crossed her mind. She rejected it. The ice vanished. Earth returned around all 4 of them. They stood beside the divine tree with Kaguya only a breath away. The second root junction was 20 yards away. Naruto's surviving clones were already there. Kaguya opened portals around them. Naruto remembered this too. During the war, Team 7 had survived Kaguya's dimensions because they learned to treat every empty space around her as a possible attack route. Now Naruto had no Sasuke beside him and no Kurama carrying his reserves. He had something else. He had spent 20 years teaching Hagoromo and Hamura how he thought. Hamura did not look at Kaguya. He watched Naruto's shoulders. Naruto shifted left. Hamura moved right before the portal appeared. Hagoromo dropped beneath a strike before Kaguya launched it. For several seconds, the 3 brothers moved around attacks that had not fully formed yet. Kaguya stopped as the pattern finally became impossible to ignore. Naruto did not merely recognize her abilities, he knew the habits behind them, the timing of her portals, and the choices she tended to make under pressure. Kaguya turned all 3 eyes on him. She asked how. Naruto told Hagoromo to seal the second junction. Kaguya's hair wrapped around Naruto's throat and lifted him from the ground. His Sage Mode senses warned him a moment before the strands tightened. He created a clone behind Kaguya and used the instant of distraction to replace himself with it. Naruto landed beside Hamura. The second junction went dark. Across the capital, the tree's pull weakened. People who had collapsed began waking. Kaguya felt it. Her fear turned to anger. She increased the flow from the main trunk. The roots beneath the ground answered. Naruto felt thousands of human life signatures flare at once as the tree forced their physical and spiritual energy into chakra and began pulling it through the open network. Hagoromo felt it too. His face went pale. The tree was beginning to draw directly from the population. Naruto shouted that they were out of time. They abandoned the third outer junction and went for the main anchor beneath the tree. Kaguya dropped in front of them again. This time, she did not open another dimension. She created a wall of chakra that drove all 3 backward. Naruto hit the ground and saw blood on Hagoromo's mouth. Hamura's left arm hung badly after the repeated impacts. Kaguya was still barely injured. The fight could not be won by force. Naruto had always known that. Now, Kaguya knew it too. She told them to stop. Hagoromo tried to stand. Kaguya raised one hand, and the pressure forced him back to one knee. Hamura activated his Byakugan again, even though veins around his eyes were trembling with exhaustion. Naruto pushed himself upright. Kaguya looked directly at him. She asked how many times he had watched her open those portals before today. Naruto said one battle was enough, when the lesson almost killed him. Silence crossed the battlefield. Kaguya understood. The anger left her face first. What replaced it was worse. She asked whether they had been enemies. Naruto did not lie again. He said yes. Kaguya's hair lifted around her as chakra surged from the tree. Hagoromo looked from his mother to Naruto. Hamura forgot his injured arm. Naruto knew the truth would hurt them. He also knew there was no safe version left. He told them the part of history that mattered. In the future, he remembered, Kaguya's fear had grown until she tried to control humanity through the divine tree. Hagoromo and Hamura had opposed her. The conflict ended, with their mother sealed away. Thousands of years later, she returned during a war Naruto had fought in himself. He had helped seal her again. Kaguya's face became completely still. She asked whether he had known that when she found him beside the river. Naruto said he had. She asked whether he had known when she fed him, sheltered him, raised him beside her own sons. Naruto said yes. The tree pulsed harder. A root erupted from the ground beside Hagoromo and wrapped around his leg. Hamura cut it with a chakra strike. Another root rose behind him. Naruto destroyed it with a Rasengan. Kaguya did not move. She was staring at Naruto, as if the years between them had become something she could no longer understand. She asked why he had stayed. Naruto's answer came without preparation. The woman he met in this era had become someone different from the enemy he remembered. Tenji had chosen trust. Hagoromo had once sneezed on him. Hamura had fallen off a roof, trying to prove he could climb faster. And Kaguya had waited outside a gate for a child who came home late from training. Naruto admitted that he had spent the first years trying to protect his future. But over time, he had started protecting the family in front of him instead. Kaguya looked at her sons. Hagoromo stood despite the pressure on him. Hamura moved closer to his brother. Neither raised a weapon toward her. Then the divine tree pulled again. This time, Hagoromo cried out. Hamura's Byakugan snapped toward the main trunk. The isolation Kaguya had used in the hidden chamber was failing under the strain of thousands of open channels. She had driven so much chakra into the tree that it was no longer staying inside the roots she had assigned. It began searching for any compatible energy it could reach, exactly as the feeder roots had done during Naruto's earlier tests. Hagoromo and Hamura carried Kaguya's chakra more strongly than any human around them. The tree caught them first. Pale lines spread beneath Hagoromo's skin as energy began leaving his body. Kaguya reacted instantly. She reached for him. The tree pulled harder. Naruto understood the trap before she did. The system Kaguya had built to protect her children was now consuming them because the safeguards that made it selective had collapsed under the load. Naruto created 3 clones and sent them toward the main route. Kaguya knocked them away by instinct. Naruto shouted at her to look at Hagoromo. She did. Hagoromo was on both knees now. Hamura had grabbed his arm and was losing chakra through the same connection. Kaguya could still finish the activation. She had enough power to overwhelm Naruto, force the twins away, and bind the population before the hidden Otsutsuki ever appeared. She also finally had proof of what Naruto had been trying to tell her. Control did not stop being dangerous because the reason for using it was love. Kaguya closed her third eye. The pressure vanished. Naruto nearly fell forward. Kaguya turned toward the divine tree and drove both hands into the main root. Instead of feeding chakra into the network, she pulled it back. The tree resisted. For the first time, Kaguya had to fight the system she had created. Roots across the capital convulsed. Houses cracked as buried channels shifted. The pale shells beneath the tree tightened around the prisoners, still trapped inside them. Hagoromo forced himself upright and placed both hands against the ground. He took control of the first two sealed junctions and reversed their flow. Hamura used his Byakugan to trace the remaining feeder channels one by one. He called their positions to Naruto. Naruto moved. This part of the fight suited him better. There was no reason to hold back against Roots. He created 20 shadow clones and divided Hamura's targets among them. The smaller channels could be cut safely now that Kaguya was drawing power away from the main network. Rasengan after Rasengan tore through pale roots beneath empty streets and evacuated courtyards. Others twisted around the clones and tried to pull chakra from them. Those clones dispersed on purpose, feeding the roots only a momentary burst before the connection vanished. Naruto used that reaction to identify which channels were actively linked to human victims. He left those for Hamura. Hamura struck exact points to shut down the drain without shocking the people attached to them. Hagoromo maintained a reverse flow until blood ran from his nose. Kaguya stood at the center of everything. The tree fought her with the momentum of power she herself had given it. Naruto reached the main trunk beside her. He could feel the entire network through Sage Mode now. Thousands of weak human signatures. Dozens of stronger captured prisoners. Hagoromo, Hamura, Kaguya. The flow was slowing. One section remained locked. The hidden chamber. The transformed soldiers were still connected to the tree, and their altered bodies acted like anchors. Kaguya hesitated. Naruto understood why. Destroying the connection might destroy the soldiers she had spent years creating. He told her to choose, not between victory and defeat, between the army and the people still alive inside it. Kaguya looked toward the earth, as if she could see through miles of root and stone. Then, she ripped the chakra connection apart. The backlash struck all of them. Naruto felt as if the ground had punched through his spine. His clones vanished across the city. Hagoromo was thrown onto his back. Hamura slid several yards through dirt. Kaguya remained standing. The divine tree went dark. For several seconds, nothing moved. Then the roots around the nearest houses loosened. People began falling free. Naruto forced himself to his feet. He could barely feel his legs. Hamura was already checking Hagoromo. Kaguya reached them first. Hagoromo opened his eyes and complained weakly that she had nearly drained him into her own army. The sentence was so absurdly direct that Naruto expected Kaguya to become angry. Instead, her hand shook as she touched Hagoromo's face. Hamura sat beside them, holding his injured arm. Naruto remained a few steps away. Kaguya looked at him. Neither knew what to say. Ino solved the problem, later, by hitting all four of them with a wooden spoon. She had survived the tree's drain, along with most of the capital. Once she confirmed that none of them were dying, she moved directly to anger. Naruto was struck first, for fighting Kaguya while injured. Hagoromo was struck for standing up, after being told to rest. Hamura was struck for trying to hide his damaged arm. Kaguya was struck last. The room became completely silent. Tenji looked away before anyone could see him smile. Kaguya stared at the spoon. Ino told her that almost turning the entire population into an army did not exempt her from being an idiot. Naruto had to leave the room because laughing made his ribs hurt too much. The recovery took months. The people taken by the outer roots woke first. Most remembered pressure, strange dreams, and then nothing. Those deeper in the network needed longer treatment. The prisoners Kaguya had altered were more difficult. Some recovered their minds once the tree's chakra was removed. Their bodies slowly began returning toward human form. Others had been changed too far. Kaguya destroyed the remaining soldier forms herself, rather than preserve them as weapons. Naruto did not celebrate that choice. He helped bury the dead. Kaguya stood with him. No one pretended every consequence could be repaired, because she had stopped in time. What mattered was that she stopped. It did not erase what the population had experienced. Entire districts had seen the divine tree move, and thousands of people had felt their strength being pulled away inside their own homes. Some families left the capital rather than sleep above roots they no longer trusted. Village elders demanded that every feeder channel near their settlements be dug out in public. Tenji opened, stored grain and timber for damaged districts, reassigned labor crews to rebuilding, and accepted that part of his authority had been damaged along with the streets. Kaguya personally dismantled the largest remaining routes where people could see her do it. Some thanked her for stopping. Others refused to come near her. She did not punish either response. Tenji addressed the crisis openly. He did not tell the population about the Otsutsuki or Naruto's future. But he admitted that Kaguya had created a defense that endangered the people it was supposed to protect. He promised that the network would never be activated again. Kaguya stood beside him and accepted the accusation instead of correcting his wording or frightening the crowd into silence. That mattered, but trust returned slowly rather than all at once. Neighboring rulers used the crisis as proof that Tenji's lands were unstable, and trade through the western routes remained thin for months. Kaguya also did not become gentle. When two border lords tried to turn that weakness into an invasion, she appeared above their armies and informed them exactly how quickly she could end the campaign if they crossed Tenji's border. They went home. Naruto approved of that solution. Some problems did not require a philosophical debate. Inside the family, the repair was slower. Hagoromo struggled most with Naruto's revelation. He had grown up believing Naruto was simply an older brother with a strange past. Learning that Naruto had once met him as an old man from a distant future disturbed him more than learning that he was supposed to help imprison his own mother. For several weeks, Hagoromo asked questions whenever Naruto sat down. What had his future self been like? Had he been wise? Had he been irritating? Had he really floated? Naruto answered the safe questions. He refused to describe every future event. The old timeline was already gone. He would not turn Hagoromo into an imitation of a man who had lived under completely different circumstances. Hamura asked fewer questions. One evening he sat beside Naruto on a roof and asked whether they had been close in the future. Naruto admitted they had barely known each other. Hamura considered that, then said he preferred this version. Naruto did too. Kaguya avoided him for nearly a month. When she finally came to Mount Myoboku looking for him, Gamamaru nearly fell into the prophecy pond. Naruto was sitting on one of the stone training pillars when Kaguya appeared below. She asked whether he still intended to return to his original future if Gamamaru ever found a path. Naruto had asked himself that question for years. Once, the answer had been immediate. Now he imagined opening his eyes in the Hokage office and learning that everything here had been erased the instant he left. Aino's survival, Tenji's choice, the childhood he had shared with Hagoromo and Hamura, and Kaguya standing against the divine tree instead of inside it. Naruto told her he did not know. Kaguya accepted the answer. Then she asked whether he had hated her when they first met. Naruto thought about the river, about the Rasengan that had started forming in his palm, about how quickly his body had prepared to fight. He said he had been afraid of her. Kaguya asked when that changed. Naruto said probably around the time she wrapped him so tightly in her cloak during a storm that he could not move his arms. Kaguya remembered the incident differently. She claimed he had been shivering and too stubborn to admit it. Naruto told her both versions could be true. Kaguya gave him a small smile before changing the subject. Over the following months, the household began settling into a different rhythm. Hagoromo began traveling between settlements and teaching people simple chakra practices centered on awareness, balance, and connection. He did not build shinobi villages. He did not create military academies. He wanted humans to understand the energy moving through life before rulers discovered how easily it could become another weapon. Naruto advised him constantly and argued with him almost as often. Hamura focused on the sky. Kaguya finally told both sons more about the Otsutsuki. Hamura began studying the spatial disturbances Kaguya could sense and the way her portals interacted with Earth's natural energy. Tenji kept governing the human lands around them, now with a family powerful enough to terrify every neighboring ruler, and strange enough to make ordinary diplomacy exhausting. Aino kept everyone fed and remained the only person in the household willing to scold Kaguya to her face. Naruto kept training, but his days were no longer organized only around preparing for the next disaster. He ate with the family, traveled with Hagoromo, argued with Hamura, helped Tenji read military reports, and still returned to Mount Myoboku when he needed harder training. He had spent years treating the past as a battlefield he needed to repair. After the Divine Tree crisis, he stopped measuring every day against what was supposed to happen. He still remembered Hinata, Boruto, and Himawari, and some nights the memory of his old home hurt so badly that sleep became impossible. He never allowed himself to call that future fake, simply because it might no longer exist. His old family remained real in his memory, while the people around him had become a family he could reach out and touch. One evening, Naruto returned to the same river where he had first met Kaguya more than 20 years earlier. The bank had changed. A flood had moved part of the channel east. The tall grass was gone near the old crossing. Trees had grown where open ground used to be. Kaguya found him there. Hagoromo and Hamura arrived later, carrying food Aino had forced them to bring. The four sat beside the water until the light faded. The conversation stayed on ordinary problems instead of prophecy or sealing. Hagoromo complained about a village elder who wanted to use chakra meditation to increase crop yields overnight. Hamura told him the idea was foolish. Naruto said it was only foolish if it failed. Kaguya informed all three that they had inherited the same talent for turning simple conversations into arguments. Naruto looked at them and understood the full scale of what had changed. In the history he remembered, Kaguya had become an enemy her sons were forced to seal. Here she was sitting beside them, while Hagoromo stole food from Hamura's plate. Kaguya remained free. Her sons remained beside her. And the family conflict that had once shaped thousands of years of history had ended before it became a war. Naruto had changed her future from inside the family itself. 3 days later, Gamamaru sent for him. The message was urgent. Naruto reached Mount Myoboku before noon and found Gamamaru beside the fissure where he had once detected the foreign pulse. This time, the natural energy below the mountain was moving rather than pulsing. Something deep beneath the earth had begun traveling with slow, deliberate purpose. Naruto closed his eyes and entered sage mode. At first, he felt only stone, underground water, roots, insects, and the broad natural energy of the land. Then a thin, ancient chakra signature appeared at the edge of his senses. Its texture felt wrong against the natural energy around it, and it vanished. As soon as Naruto noticed it, Naruto opened his eyes. Gamamaru asked whether he felt it. Naruto nodded. When he returned, Kaguya understood from his face before he spoke. She listened to the description and went completely still. Hagoromo asked whether it was the Otsutsuki she had betrayed. For years, Kaguya had refused to give them the name. This time, she finally said it. The other Otsutsuki was Ishiki, and the name meant nothing to Naruto. That frightened him more than recognition would have. Kaguya looked toward the western horizon. She said that if Ishiki had survived this long, then hiding had never been his final plan. The old fear returned to Kaguya's face, but her response to it was different now. She did not turn toward the divine tree. She looked to Hagoromo, Hamura, and Naruto, and the four of them began planning together. Far to the west, beneath a temple that had not existed when Kaguya first arrived on Earth, a monk named Jigen opened his eyes. For years, something inside him had been too damaged to move freely. It had survived by patience, by concealment, and by rebuilding itself through a human vessel, one piece at a time. The divine tree's recent awakening had flooded the old root network with enough chakra for the hidden presence to feel Kaguya clearly again. Jigen's pupils narrowed. A second presence looked through them. For the first time since Kaguya had left him dying beneath the earth, Ishiki Otsutsuki was ready to learn what kind of world she had built without him.